And there are some people who came late, so they were quite happy, actually. Okay, let's see what the Gemara says over here. So yesterday we were learning about the Mishnah. Reb Meir said that if you had truma that you were using as your erev, and it became tummy, and it became tummy sometime throughout Ben Hashmoshes, and we don't know when. So therefore, we don't know if it was a good erev or not. Because if it became tummy before Ben Hashmoshes or early in Ben Hashmoshes, then it wouldn't be a good erev. If it became tummy later, it would be a good erev, and we don't know. So Reb Meir said that it's not a good erev, and Rabbi Yosy said it is a good erev. Rabbi Yosy says from Avtomas that a Suffolk erev is a good erev. So the Gemara had a stira in Reb Meir. So we're about 10 lines from the bottom of Lamed Chem Beis. Varami da'iraisa ada'iraisa. We're going to have a stira between what Reb Meir's opinion is by a Suffolk da'iraisa versus what Reb Meir's opinion is by a Suffolk da'iraisa. Varami da'iraisa ada'iraisa Reb Meir. Naga be'echad b'layla. So our Mishnah indicates that the Suffolk da'iraisa, because he learns Tchumen is da'iraisa, as we said, the Suffolk da'iraisa is l'chumra. But there's a brayso that says naga be'echad b'layla. Someone was sleeping in a group, and at night they all went to sleep. They were alive and well, maybe a little tipsy, and throughout the night, someone touched somebody. He didn't know at the time when he touched that person if that person was alive or dead. He was half asleep. And in the morning he wakes up and he sees that the fellow near him didn't survive the night. Reb Meir Matayr. Reb Meir holds this person's Torah, meaning it's a Suffolk Tumah, and Reb Meir says we treat him like he's Torah. The Chachamim hold his Tumah. Shekol haTameyos kishas mitziyasim. You always make the judgment call based on the situation as it is when you discover you have a problem. You take a snapshot at that moment in time. When did you discover you had the problem? In the morning. The snapshot in the morning will indicate that this fellow was dead. But Reb Meir doesn't hold like that. Reb Meir holds you can go to Kula, and you could rely that this fellow who was sleeping was in fact alive. Zokt Amar Reb Yirmiyah. Reb Yirmiyah said, Mishnah Seinu, our Mishnah, where Reb Meir is Machmer, it's because it's Kishahaya, I believe the Aleph in the Bach just adds a Chaf. Kishahaya, let me just look at the Bach. Yeah, Kishahaya Aleha Sheretz Kol Bein Hashmoshes. There was a sheretz on the truma all of Bein Hashmoshes. So it's not much of a suffix, it's actually a vadai. And that's why Reb Meir holds that it's tamei. Frek the Gemara, well, in that very same case, Reb Yosy in the Mishnah says that every suffix is every suffix true erev is a good erev. Yihachi b'hal lemer Reb Yosy suffix erev kosher. In that case, would Reb Yosy hold that a suffix erev is kosher? It doesn't make sense. It's not a suffix. The sheretz was on the truma all of Bein Hashmoshes. I'm sorry, someone saw. So we're going to get to the teretz in a second. But what's our problem here? Our problem here is that Reb Meir holds that you should follow a cheskes kashrus. And since this truma had a cheskes kashrus, had a cheskes tahira, when you left it there, let's not break that suffix. Just like he says with the mace. When he went to sleep, he had a cheskes kashrus, or the mace had a cheskes chai. So Reb Meir says, since he had a cheskes kashrus, he had a cheskes tahira before, he retains his chazaka, and we say that he didn't become tummy until now when he saw the guy was dead. Right? I'm sorry? That's right. So if he says that over there, why doesn't he say that over here? That's the shayla. The Gemara offered a teretz that didn't make sense, right? And the case was where the sheretz was on the truma all throughout Bein Hashmoshes. And that's how the Gemara solves that problem. And the Gemara immediately runs into an obstacle, because then why would Rabbi Yosy hold it's a good erev? And now we're going to have to deal with that fallout. I have an eitzah to make a suffix here and eliminate any cheskes kashrus. And then you have a perfect understanding why Reb Meir holds it's going to be a bad erev, because there was no cheskes tayr. And Rabbi Yosy holds it's a suffix, you could go to kula. And what's Rabbi Kiveger's einfall? Very simple. Let's read the words inside, because it's so beautiful. It's in the Gilyon Eshas. Tamu Alif Reb Kiveger. Delamai Muki Shahaya Hasheretz Alea Kain Ben Hashmashos. Kol Ben Hashmashos. Why would the Gemara shtel it ein where the sheretz was on the Truma Al Ben Hashmashos? And it doesn't work out. Right? We run into trouble. We're writing and stuck with that problem. We didn't even get to the Gemara's teretz yet. Luki B'Pshitos the Nafil Aleva Toich Ben Hashmashos. The sheretz, we know exactly at 6:37 the sheretz fell on the Truma. It wasn't there. It was there for 2 minutes, from 6:37 to 6:39. But Vanan Yadinon has Manchinafalale. We know 100% the time that it fell. So now you can't use a chazaka to say that it fell earlier, did it fall later. We know exactly when it fell. At that point, you can no longer say put it on the chazaka because we have clarity in what occurred. So what's the suffix? Why is Ben Ishmashis a suffix? Because there's one point in that period of time that it becomes night. We don't know when that is. You can't use a chazaka for the unknown of a halacha, of a metzius, right? Uvha Shapir, Amr Rabbi Yosy, the suffix of kosher. That would have been a perfect teretz. It's speaking where we know exactly when the sheretz fell. We don't know if that's Yoim or if that's Laila or if that straddles the changeover period, right? And therefore, we don't know if it's before or if it's after. You can't use a chazaka for that because it's a child of metzius. We don't know when that changeover occurs. And then you have a perfect machlokes without any chazakas hindering our opinion, or Meir and hold Chomer, and Reish holds the Gula.
He doesn't want his answer.
Vashem Yirainai.
Yeah.
What is the shirt? So I told you what my Rebbe says.
I know, so we can't do that. That would be a problem. Of something here, we have the same exact thing. Whether it was Gal, any of the cases that the Gemara, the missions in the.
But then it shows when that occurred. Right? If it shows when that occurred.
But flip it around.
Right. Right. If you.
Like we saw, we have a videotape of when it rolled.
And that's what Kibbutz is asking. Why are we struggling here to find a case where a mayor and a Yosy are arguing? Why can't you say they're arguing about the suffix of when the changeover is?
Even today, we have you saw for something.
I've had it.
So hold on, because the suffix of there is, we don't know it, but there is a specific time that it is.
It's got to change over at one point.
Huh?
I mean, it's got to, right? At one point, it has to switch from day to night.
It says, when Sheikh Khan, when exactly when the relationship is, it's not just a question when it is or when it is, it's a question that we don't know when that point is, but there is at one point that.
There must be.
At one point, you will be able to verify if it was or not.
There might, logic dictates that, right?
But if it rolled out everything like somebody's saying that there's no, if you're talking about there's no cameras, there's no way of ever knowing that we'll ever know when that was.
Well, how do we know? We had to have an aid.
Huh?
There would have had to have been an aid that saw that. That saw that happen. Exactly. So however we found out exactly what time the sheretz came, that's how we would find out when it rolled away.
Okay, well, let's say we don't. I'm saying, okay, well, let's say we don't know the time. I'm saying here we know exactly the time. It was specifically the time.
Because there was an aid. Somehow an aid saw it and was able to tell us.
So we know there's at some point, meaning it's totally unfair. It's going to be later on. We're not going to know it now, but there's.
One day we'll find out if that was night or day.
Right. It's a specific. It's not just a regular substance. It's just something that we're in the darkness. We don't know right now, but we'll know. At one point, 6:33 was, or 6:33.
It's irrelevant. It's going to be when the Mashiach comes.
I
What does that mean for the Shabbos?
know, but I'm saying, I'm trying to say it's a different suffix than the regular suffix.
You're right. We know what's different about the suffix. It's a suffix lalacha. When is night, and you can't use any chazakas to influence that. That's what you need. If Kiviger found a suffix that you cannot use a chazaka to influence. That's exactly what he was looking for.
Can you elaborate on the suffix? Is the suffix because no one truly knows, or it's machlokes and rishonim?
Nobody truly knows.
Nobody truly knows.
The machlokes rishonim is when is the period of time that it's a suffix.
So why did we see them daven mincha all the way up until Rebbe Tam?
Oh, because there are rishonim who learn that the suffix period begins much later. Ben Ishmashis is keherifying at the end of what we consider Ben Ishmashis.
And that keherifying that suffix is only like keherifying. It's not.
I believe so.
Yeah, but then how do we apply the halachas of Eruvin? We are required to have an Eruvin in place.
That's why you have to have it in place.
That we don't know.
No, that's why we have to have it from before the Shas Sofik. At the last Shas Sofik.
That's what we make Shabbos 18 minutes important, because we know there is no stuff. There's stuff. This whole Beis Rushes has always been a problem.
An opportunity.
Very good. Okay. Go ahead.
So that's what Kiva Kasha. That's what Kiva Kasha. I'm just thinking out what Chaim C just said triggered something in my head. I think I don't know for sure, but I think that according to Chassidim, according to Rebbe Tam, I believe no, we had a sheet in the Gemara. No, we had a machlokes. There's a machlokes Tanoim in the Gemara. I'm a in the Gemara. If right, Rabbi Yehuda's ben Ishmashis was a much longer period of time. And Rabbi Yoshy's ben Ishmashis is the couple of minutes all the way at the end of the period of time that Rabbi Yehuda's ben Ishmashis is. So that's why Rabbi Yehuda's ben Ishmashis is 40 minutes. Rabbi Yoshy's ben Ishmashis is the last 2 minutes of it. But I guess there's still some time in between that there's wiggle room. So that's Rabbi Kivega's kasha. But now we have to work with the Gemara. And the Gemara has a kasha. Why is it that if the sheretz was there the whole time, why is it that Rabbi Yosy would hold it at Sofik Erev Kosher if we know the entire Ben Hashmashis, the Truma was done? So Gemara, Rabbi Yosy of Damar Tevayu, and Rashi tells us later that they're actually explaining Rabbi Yirmiyah Shito, who said that the sheretz was there the whole time, and he said something else. It wasn't really there the whole time. Rather, Hocha b'shtei kiteidim askina. There's contradictory. There's two sets of contradictory edim. Achas emerish mibo yoim nitma, v'achas emerish mishachashecha. So therefore, according to Rabbi Yossi, who's mater, he says that ukitrei levaditrei, the two sets of edim neutralize each other, and you're left with the chazaka of tahira that the truma had when you placed it, and therefore it's a good area. Where Meir holds, once there's a set of edim that are breaking the chazaka, that go connected the chazaka, that say it was talking earlier, the chazaka completely loses its value, and now you just look at a suffix deraisa, and therefore you have to be machmer. Let's see Rashi inside. It's 3 lines from the bottom. Meir Shabbos the ikakat the mafkalei mechazakei b'sveika deraisa. Because we said earlier, Reb Meir learns that Erev Tchumen is deraisa. Lo yazlinon basar chazaka. Avo b'nagea bechad b'layla. When you're rolling over and you touch somebody in the middle of the night, the ein kat moitziyasa mechaskasai. There are no edim saying that you touched him when he was dead or not. There mokmin alei kol alayla b'chaskasai. So normally Reb Meir would follow the chazaka unless you have a set of edim that's directly contradicting the chazaka. And therefore, so that is the first explanation of Machlekes Reb Meir and Yosy. No, by Rabban he would be Mekel. That's what the Gemara is saying at this point. Yeah. If once you throw in a suffix or Rabban into the mix, I'm going to throw another problem into the mix. The other problem you have into the mix is there's.
I'm talking about something that I'm with this case where you had.
I understand. We have a chazaka here that the guy didn't have an erev before Shabbos. He has a chazaka right now that his place for Shabbos is not where his erev is. Right? Until you make an erev, you don't have an erev. So what about that chazaka? And that mixes things up. Because now I have a chazaka saying the other way. And Tosfos asks from that kasha, he asks why is it ever a kasha? Why was it ever a kasha from Mace to Truma, but from Mace to Eruvin? By Eruvin you have a chazaka working against you. So why didn't the Gemara use that as a factor to explain why Reb Meir is machmer be'eruv? Because you have a chazaka working against you. He right now he's muksuk that his base here is at home.
Wherever he is.
Until we can prove that he made a new shvisa, we assume he has a chazaka.
He made an action that would have not meaning. Chalaka says I was at a certain thing and nothing. Something happened outside my power, whatever. And then and because of that, so now I don't know where it is. Now here, he took an action. He said, hey, I'm confused. Now something happened after that, we don't know, but it sort of changed the status.
So you're saying this really shouldn't be considered a chazaka.
Right.
That's what you're arguing.
Yeah, it's a
So that's what
question.
Tosfos says.
Questionable chazaka.
So look at what Tosfos says. I'm just going to read. I'm going to read from the first wide line in Tosfos, the last word on the first wide line of Tosfos. Tosfos v'i have amrina. If you're going to argue like Mechi just argued, the chazaka shaloi ira v'lo choshev le'ashas chazaka. If you're going to argue that the Gemara doesn't consider that a chazaka, which is exactly what Rav Mechi is arguing, Asi Shaper, it'll come out good. I don't have a kasha. However, Tosfos is going to tell us that on Amud Aleph, Rashi specifically cites that chazaka. So that's the end of Tosfos, how he gets around it, and he throws in that it's since Erev is a Rabban, so that makes it back to the Suffolk Lakula. So he mixes in the factor that it's a Rabban. So yet when you brought it up, it comes into play to deal with this issue. Chazak to Gemara. Rav Amar, I want to thank you actually for saying your svar, because when I told you, I didn't know why is it not a chazaka. But now you're offering a Kishmaka explanation. I already made a movement to change it. Sure, there's issues with whether my movement was chal, but I took a concrete step to change that chazaka. So how could that be a chazaka?
It's not a regular word, nothing happened. Now you did something.
See-
You took an action to change something.
See, once you said Shabbat Tosfos, I was no longer afraid to bring up Tosfos, because then I didn't have to explain why. You took my fear away, right? Chazak to more weiter. Rava wants to offer another difference between the case of the person waking up with a dead body near him, where we say he's tar, versus our suffix when the truma became tamei, where you say it's not a good chazaka. And he says as follows: Hazam trei chazaka lakula. By the case of the makes the true chazaka is lakula. There's the chazaka that the person was alive before the night, and there's a chazaka that I was tar before the night. So both chazakas are supporting the argument that the mess died after I touched it. But the hacha, when we're discussing Eruvin, chad chazaka lakula. We only have one chazaka lakula, and that is that the truma had a cheskes taira. So therefore, Reb Meir here will be makel. You don't need any edim or anything. Just as it is, the base information as it is. There you have two arguments to say that this person is tar. Here you only have one argument to say that the Eruv is a good Eruv. So now that we finished explaining Reb Meir, and we explained how it's not a steer to anything else Reb Meir said, when Reb Meir over here was Machmer, now we have to look at Reb Yosy. Because Kasha Reb Yosy, let's not forget, in the brayso that we quoted, by a Derabanan, by a Tumah Derabanan, when it was a suffix, whether or not you toiveled in the mikveh, right? Like Chaim Tzvi said, it never happened to him that he was in the mikveh and he forgot whether or not he toiveled, but he did encounter other sveikas in his life, right? Last night when I went to the mikveh, there was nobody else in the mikveh. I know I toiveled, and the water was cold, so I know I toiveled. I was wide awake when I toiveled. So Rabbi Yosy over there said that if it was a suffix, whether or not you toiveled, you're tar. So there Rabbi Yosy is Matar, yet Rabbi Yosy Rabbi Yosy over there said Rabbi Yosy was Matama. In that price, it was a mayor who was Matar, because Rabbi Meir held it's a Tumah D'Rabbanan. Rabbi Yosy was Machmer over there. Rabbi Yosy says you're Tamei, right? Yet in our brisa, in our Mishnah, he holds it's a good Eruv. So how do you explain Rabbi Yosy? The same way we had a stira in Rabbi Meir, we have a stira in Rabbi Yosy. Rabbi Yosy by a D'Rabbanan says it's Tamei by Tama, yet Rabbi Yosy by Eruvin, which is a D'Rabbanan, says it's Tahar. So let's see Rashi Kashmir Rabbi Yosy. The brayso the Ktani b'Safek Tavel b'Safek Loy Tavel uva Tumah D'Rabbanan achal Eichel Rabbi Yosy Metamei must say Ktani Safek Erev Kasher b'Afilu Tchumen D'Rabbanan Tikshi. Even if you hold Tchumen D'Rabbanan, it's still shver. Zok to Gemara, not a problem. Kasav Rabbi Yosy Amar Abhuna Bachinina Shining Tuma Hoyel V'Yesh LaIkar Min HaTorah. Sure, we are discussing Tumah D'Rabbanan, but the concept of Tumah has a basis in the Torah, because there's many other Tumas, and therefore there's a svara to say you should be machmer by a Safek Tefillah, because if we're going to be mekel by this Safek Tefillah by a Tumah D'Rabbanan, you might also be mekel by a Tefillah of a Safek by a Tumah D'Oraisa. In fact, tomorrow, well, Shabbos Nami D'Oraisa. Shabbos is also D'Oraisa. And explains Rashi, we're not asking that Shabbos in general is D'Oraisa, because the Gemara acknowledges that Eruvin is too different from other malachos. But the suggestion is maybe you hold that Eruvin is D'Oraisa. So Gemara Kasav, Rabbi Yosy Tchumen Derabanan, and Rashi speaks out, and don't ask me from other halachas of Shabbos. Other halachas of Shabbos are distinct enough from the concept of Tchumen that there's not a Xeret. But by Tumah, there's a concern that if we allow you to be makel on a Suffolk Tefillah for a Tumah Derabanan, you might also be makel for a Suffolk Tefillah of a Tumah Deraisa.
Sorry, why is it two there?
That's not the case we're asking from. We're asking from the Brisa where it said he was Tamim Midrabanan because, and it's Suffolk Tafel, Suffolk Lo Tafel. Right? Or you could say Hadi de Hadarabe, or you could say Hadi de Hadarabe, meaning our Mishnah is not Rabbi Yosy. Our Mishnah is Rabbi Yosy. The name of his Rebbe. They can name the Ketani Rabbi Yosy of Tumlus Hayud Mishum Chamisha Skenim Shesofik Erev Kosher Shema Mina. Rav Amar Hasam on the time of the Rabbi Yosy. Why are we going to make a difference between Rabbi Yosy's Mekel by Erev and Machmer by Tumah? Is Hamet Tomei Achaskasai Vemaloi Tava.
You ran
But
away from the Chamishas that came before these Chamishas.
I don't know.
Quote from the Mishnah.
Yeah. So I don't know who the Chamishas came are. So Hanet Rabbi Yosy the Hamet Tomei Achaskasai. It's because the Tomei has a Cheskas Tomei. Maybe that's why Rabbi Yoshi's Machmer over there. Vemaloi Tava. In fact, the more over here too. Adrab Ema Hamet Mikvah Achaskasai. Why don't you say the mikvah has a chazaka ve'emaloi chosar? Right, because we had a suffix if the mikvah at 40 saw. So tomorrow mikvah shaloinim dad. We're speaking by a mikvah that was never measured, it never had a cheskes kashrus, and that's where Rabbi Yoshi's matama. But if in fact you measured the mikvah first, and then later on you saw that it didn't have 40 saw, you weren't sure, Avadi you wouldn't be machmer. Okay, let's stop here.
That's a valid.
I don't know. It's right. If it's exact, if you have a lot more than 40 saw, you're okay. Or not, because cover as well.
But
Shkoyach.